Grab your pre-workout and turn up that volume. It is time for a new episode of the Powerlifter's Den with your host, Cam Smith. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Powerlifter's Den. I'm your host, Cam Smith, and today I wanted to bring on my coach and his partner in crime, Elise and Kirby. Why don't you introduce yourself?
Hi, guys. Elise Frazier, owner of Invictus Barbell Club, located on Cape Cod.
I'm Kirby Goodrich. I'm from Springfield, Vermont, born and raised, and been powerlifting for almost 7 years.
Awesome. So I guess we'll get started by maybe telling us a little bit about you guys met, whether it was through powerlifting, kind of how you guys teamed up, be kind of like a mom and pop of like a powerlifting team.
Let me see.
I'll let you take it.
So it was actually about 2 years ago in December. I just came back to powerlifting. I was like probably over a year and a half out of the sport, just kind of doing my own thing, doing a bunch of random stuff. And then just decided that I needed a little bit more structure in my life because I wasn't headed down a good path. So about early October, I just decided to start training again. And I had sold a lot of my equipment and stuff. So Jamie up at Fairhaven had posted he was selling a bar. And I was like, hey, like I would like to have that bar. Can I come up, start training again? Basically like 6-7 week prep, did a meet. And that's where I met her at that meet that I did. It was my first meet back, my first meet in equipment, and totaled 1950. And I got invited to do the Arnold that year. So that would have been in March of 22. And she slid into my DMs congratulating me on my invite. And we were just friends for a long time after that. And then it eventually became more than that.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So kind of going more into about Invictus Barbell, at least maybe tell us where the name came from, kind of what was the early plans and kind of where it's heading now.
Very early plans was essentially just something to do. I'd worked for commercial gyms for years, kind of settled into it during the pandemic. So the original building that we had was like super small, just a very like knit group of us. Powerlifting saved a lot of us just from the mundane pandemic life. I put on the first mock meet in February of 21. So just gathered basically everyone that went to the gym and made them do powerlifting. So there's about 15 of us, and it was literally just the 15 of us. It was squat, bench, dead. We had one rack that we had to move up and down the whole time. It was just like borderline nightmare. But that kind of lit the fire for a lot of people. And after that, it turned into more mock meets and more people interested in powerlifting and just strength training in general. So that's where it started, and the direction is just that tenfold. So big goals, at least going into 24 now. Expanding right now, I have a building that has 2 bays. One's totally finished, so goal is to get the second one done. And I guess would be a long-term goal, but it's pretty much on the horizon now to run finally like a sanctioned meet and still do some mock meets for fun. But sanctioned meets and getting going that direction.
Awesome. So. Yeah. I like the idea of a mock meet too, because it kind of can get people to try it out without having to have like, I guess the same type of pressure as a sanction. I don't know if you do a cheaper buy-in, like a entrance fee, or if it's just free but yeah, it definitely lets the newcomers kind of get that experience, like that early taste of it.
Yeah, I've found a lot more people interested in it that way because they don't have to put the singlet on. They don't have to pay, this crazy registration fee or whatever. And it's like, it's in their home gym.
Yeah.
So they find that comfort. They can have their family and friends come. So the one we did this past September was our biggest one. And we had like 18 or 19 competitors, and it was really cool. We had one nice head judge. So that was a fun one too.
Yeah. So, Kirby, I know you just competed this past weekend. Obviously, I was there. It was a huge meet. First time squatting over 11 in comp. I guess kind of going into it, you weren't really super active about maybe posting some of your lifts and stuff. I'm not sure if it was just something you wanted to kind of put on a performance, but maybe tell us more about the prep leading into it.
Well, it was kind of interesting because I did the WPO 5 weeks before. So I was kind of had to juggle a lot of different stuff in terms of like supplementation, trying to peak for 2 meets that close apart. So, not that we took the WPO lightly at all. Obviously the goal was to go there and compete as well as I could. I didn't plan on missing 2 squats like I did there. Didn't really have a good squat day there. And there's a lot of factors that go into multiply too, so from the point from where I went to the WPO, I basically just kind of took in a few more squat sessions. And not like I had felt like I wasn't peaked or anything. I don't know. I just needed a confidence boost after getting stapled twice at the WPO. So, and then we actually made a switch to, and it was also weird too, because I'd had like pretty much my best bench meet ever at the WPO. Of course, when my squat didn't perform, which is my best lift, my bench shows up. But then I had really bad tendonitis and stuff, because I had cut my hand leading into that, and I had to hold the squat bar weird, and for some reason it gave me this crazy tendonitis in my forearms and elbow, so I wasn't really able to bench a whole lot in between the 2 meets. But we actually made the switch to use my tighter set of briefs the day of the Hellbent meet, because my buddy Donnie Ross has been borrowing those for me, and my plan was to grow into my bigger ones. I couldn't gain any weight, but I'm like, you know what? Let's try to squeeze into them. My weight's kind of down right now. I feel like I'm a good enough squatter where I can kind of change a little bit of a variable and still perform well. The bench, absolutely not. Never would switch a bench shirt going into a meet because I'm not that good. But so we put the tighter briefs on. It made a hell of a lot more tension to work with, and the squats went great. We hit the number we wanted to. The opener moved good enough, 10-20, 10-21. And I was like, let's just go right for it, right? The goal number we wanted, let's just go for it on the second. Mm-hmm. And it went really well. Bench didn't show up, but we got one in.
Yep.
And then we actually had a really good deadlift day too, which the deadlift was weird because I wasn't able to pull with the stitches in my hand. So I kind of didn't peak my deadlifts the way I normally would. So I kind of did like a 2 or 3 week little mini peak of that. And it actually worked out really well, where I thought I was actually pulling near my strongest at a meet, which hasn't really happened in a long time. So I think it was kind of a blessing in disguise in that way. But overall, it was a really good day for what I expected and what I thought I could really hit. I pretty much maximized what I thought I could. So that's always a good feeling.
Yeah. I mean, that meet was awesome. I mean, you had 3 people squat 1,100 pounds. That's could have been 5 if, Chris hit his, and if Bob was healthy enough. That's just an insane amount of people to be squatting that much weight. I guess going into the future, it might even be something that's kind of bigger than the WPO in just terms of the crowd that shows up. Obviously the WPO has kind of fallen off the rails a little bit over the past few years, and Skiba is becoming kind of one of the new big guys in the multiply world. So I'm excited to see that meet next year and down the line. I guess kind of getting more into the equip side. Elise, I see you got a pair of briefs and got into a shirt. Yep. So you're starting to dabble with that, getting poisoned by the multiply mind. Maybe tell us a little bit about what that's been like so far.
Honestly, it's for someone that has been powerlifting pretty consistently with same variables. This past meet I did in May, didn't get to really peak my squat the way I wanted to. So then November meet just threw me in wraps, and a lot of that was influenced pretty heavily by Kirby just being like, just do it, whatever. And seeing what I could do in wraps just kind of tweaked my brain just enough to say, well, if I can do this in just wraps, what can I do with some other equipment? So he's been scrambling to find me gear just to try things, and it's a whole different world. So I'm excited. I'm super excited. So just taking it, literally lift by lift. A lot of the things, we typically only see each other on weekends. So it's whatever I can get in when I'm around him. Luckily I have people at my gym that have been really curious and supportive. So they kind of want to know what's going on too. We'll see what happens. So I'm looking forward to my squat and seeing what happens with that the most. So.
Do you have a meet planned for your first equip meet?
Springtime.
Yeah.
So yeah, we're just gonna kind of see how things go for the next 6 or so weeks, get me in full gear and actually see where that kind of lands, and then look at spring. So
Yeah, I think I'm starting to get closer and closer. I think this year I'm going to purchase a pair of briefs and maybe like a single ply shirt. So I think Kirby, you'll have some fun getting to program some of that for me.
oh yeah,
Yep.
But
And I think it's just like a new,
it's just new stimulus. And
it's
it's
just
fun.
it's like it's a whole nother career. So if you've been in it a long time, it's a chance for like, okay, I'm X amount of years into it. Now I have a chance to almost start over again. It's the same lifts, but you're starting over.
Yeah.
And I think she had a bad experience for a few years, and then she had actually gotten a really good coach over this past year, which really kind of like helped her kind of just build some momentum of wanting to continue to powerlift, which I think was really good.
That was huge. So yeah, I was kind of in that not really sure where I was going to go with it sort of zone. Like I love coaching it. I love like even just being at meets, but just to get under a bar and like want to see what I could do again was what I needed. And now with the multiply world, I don't know what I can do. So I don't have anywhere. And Kirby actually like really reiterated this to me. Like, I have no idea where I'm supposed to be with this stuff. So it's all fun and it's all new, and we'll see what happens.
Yeah, and I mean, for me, I forget who said it, but someone compared like raw versus multiply, like long jump to pole vaulting. Like it's at the end of the day, they're the same in a way, but they're also completely different, and it's just adding a new tool to get to the next level. So it should be exciting to see how things go, and I'm looking forward to kind of hopping in it myself.
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
it's exciting.
Be good.
Yeah, so kind of more into the coaching side of things. I know you guys have been coaching some people for years and kind of have teamed up a little bit to kind of collaborate. So what's been like the approach to that? Maybe what are some differences you guys had, or maybe a lot of similarities you guys found with your programming?
Honestly, just right off the bat for me, I have a lot of beginners. So even if they've lifted weights, they might be beginners in powerlifting. I have people that are bodybuilders that, crossed over. I have people that just weren't really sure that they could even squat, bench, or dead safely. So a lot of my clientele is beginner and or like into the intermediate kind of level. So
I'm on the complete opposite end.
It's totally different, which is so cool because for a coach to ask another coach for help is not only respectable, but it's something that I think the client or the athlete sees as something. So my strongest male and my strongest female, I was like, hey, Kirby, let's jump on board. So we had Charlie that just did a meet, and he's like our, child prodigy, just wild, just genetic freak. We love him. And that's something that I definitely was like, I think I need another set of eyes on this kid. And that turned out super well. We kind of turned around an 8-week peak for that.
Yeah, we didn't have a lot of time.
So he could travel. He's still in college. So, and then we've got Kelly. She's coming up in February. I think we got a lot of eyes on Kelly. So a lot of people have seen her compete, and she's got a athletic background. Her work ethic is unmatched, honestly. But to get her in wraps for squats from being a completely raw lifter, like no belt, no sleeves, no nothing, just a pair of lifting shoes. And seeing what Kirby's done with her and her confidence go skyrocket, that's been huge for me as a coach to have the extra set of eyes, for sure.
Yep. And then like I said, she's doing a lot of beginners, so like a lot of stuff that like you see with the conjugate style and bands and chains and different variations, like they're not even ready for that. They can't even perform the movements correctly to begin with the straight bar.
Yeah.
So it's absolutely completely unnecessary for them to do anything, any specialty bars or they just need to figure out the movement first before any additional, variations needed. But I think like she's getting more into like just using the movements. Like the movements are to train the movements, do shortened range, block presses. You can do block pulls, anything like that, high box squats, just for them to get additional reps and practice the movements. So she's definitely added more of that in to a lot of her, because a lot of her people, like, that's very small girls that don't have any muscle mass and any stuff like that. So they need to put on a little bit of size to be a decent power lifter.
Even some of my men too, like some of my male powerlifters, like that hitting that 300 benchmark, but using, blocks and all that kind of stuff, like that's huge. And honestly, like I think my bottom line with it is to see their confidence go up, because I know for myself, like if I'm not really sure about something and my confidence is kind of iffy on it, I'll be like, nah, all right, maybe give, like 90%. But it's cool to see them like, oh, I could do that weight. My best friend, perfect example, not really comfortable with getting around heavier weights, and I had her do, deficit deadlift pull with bands the other day, and she like PR'd the weight, reps, everything, and she was mind blown. And that's
awesome.
just so cool to see. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's kind of funny from like Kirby, your perspective. I feel like I'm like kind of the opposite end of that, the overconfidence going into some lifts. So I'm not sure if you've dealt with some people like that before, but maybe kind of go into more of the approach to someone like that.
I just try to have people have the mindset of you got to leave a little bit in the tank. So I've been working with Jamie up at Fairhaven for almost 7 years now, and the big thing he's always instilled in us is to leave a little bit in the tank. If you leave a little bit in the tank in your training, you can perceivably go get that, when it's actually time to go for the meet, versus if you swing and miss, if you're just swinging and missing at stuff you didn't have no business taking.
Yeah.
If you make a technical error, that's one thing, but like you're swinging at missing at shit, there's no need to. You're not at a competition right now. Like if we're working to a top single, just get to a single that's pretty good for the day. Like, okay, you're a similar lifter to me where you're very explosive and reboundy, and when the bar slows down, it slows down quick.
Yeah.
And you got to be careful to not, take a jump that's unnecessary. So, I mean, a lot of my guys have, versus her, she's more in person with beginner clients. A lot of my people are all online, and they've powerlifted for years. So like, I'm not teaching them how to lift weights. Like they just needed a different approach of their programming, or just, different ideas of stuff. Yeah, so a lot of, and then like Charlie's one thing too, where he just wants to go heavy, and it's like two weeks out from a meet, and he's like, oh dude, this is moving great. Can I take another one?
You're like, great, no, it's moving great.
It's moving great. It should be moving great. We're doing a meet in 2 weeks. Like we'll leave it for the platform.
Yeah.
So sometimes it's explaining the plan ahead of time, I guess, to somebody. Like if you want to go heavy, but I'm like, Cam, listen, 2 more weeks, we're going to go straight bar with the wraps again. So like, let's save a little bit for that day, because that day is going to be a good day to indicate whether or not our training's working or if we're in a good spot. So I guess it's just, communicating, to what the plan is to people. I think if you just give them the program, then they can, kind of interpret things any way they want. But I
agree with that. I think it's sort of making that little mental note for them. Like there's a reason why it says by RPE, or if we're doing a certain percentage or whatever it happens to be, there's a reason for that. It's not just on there because we wanted to put it on that week. It's on there because we have a vision for the next 2, 4, 6 weeks or more, depending on, what the end goal is. So
yeah. And from my perspective, I've taken some of the things I've learned from you and applied it to my programming, kind of more. It's still kind of the conjugate style, but I've added more into the MSMs with like the board presses and things like that, just because obviously training that top end to strength is something that is huge in both raw and multiply. But kind of the idea of prescribing RPE, I believe Delafev said this. He was like, if you've never done a 10, then it's hard to give someone RPE because they really don't know. Because I mean, sometimes you see these people posting, it'll say, oh, RPE 7, but it looks like they barely even got that one, or completely vice versa.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
It is important to be able to utilize that as a tool, because sometimes percentages just aren't good, especially for a movement when there's AR involved, where you really don't know the percentage at certain points of the lift. So
it changes so much.
I noticed that also switching variations. If we say I have a competitive sumo deadlifter and we're going to try conventional, or vice versa, they have no idea what their 1 rep max is, so we have to sort of find that. But how do we find that? So really reiterating how important it is to follow the RPE, especially if it's especially with sumo and conventional. I mean, from experience of a hip injury, like I tried to pull sumo for a little bit, didn't work that well, but just if I followed RPE correctly, then hypothetically you get to a point where you can actually max that, and it's safe too.
I'll actually add on to something I was just thought about too in terms of like overshooting. I think in like at least like over the last year of my training, I only remember missing 2 squats in training, and they were both just I hip shifted, made a technical error. So I think it's very important, like success. Like you have a lot of success going in. You know, you don't know how to miss essentially. You know, it's just a good mindset to be in. Where if you leave a little bit in the tank. Okay, you hit 385 bench with a little bit of smoke on it in the gym. You know what? Now it's better than missing 400 in the gym, because then you're gonna go and be like, oh, I don't know if I can do 400 because I missed it.
Yeah.
Versus you hit 385 with good, you're like, I think I got 400. Like confidence is a big thing in this. In you know, having people that are confident is a huge thing.
And I also agree with not attaching certain numbers. You can have goals.
Yeah.
But 225 today could feel different than 225 in 4 weeks.
Yep.
Absolutely. And that's why RP is important.
Yeah.
So a good example would be me the other day doing my deadlifts. I was like, I don't know about this. And, you know, he's just said, just meet the RP. That's your job today. Meet the RP. Okay.
Yeah. And I guess for me too, kind of with like me really getting towards like wanting to hit that 1700, and especially like the 7 squat and the 4 bench. Like anytime I'm doing these squat or bench variations, like that's always a number in my mind. So when I come up short, I get a little bit disappointed. But then at the end of the day, I'm like, well, I still have 4 months of training, and this is a variation, and this is just one training session. So
right.
Like training fatigue is a thing, and like people don't think it is.
Yeah.
Like especially in the conjugate realm, you think you can just switch a variation and hit PRs. Well, eventually you're not going to be able to just hit a 5-pound PR. Like generally, I don't even track my PRs anymore. I just work to whatever feels pretty heavy for that day. And then, you know, because it doesn't matter. Like if I'm training right now, December doesn't matter. If I'm going to compete again in April or May, like this doesn't matter. I just need to get some work in. You know, the numbers matter on the platform more than anything. So,
yeah. I agree with that.
Yeah, and for something like me, I think the more disappointing like misses for me are when I go for an attempt where the strength is there and it's some sort of technical error. I think that's been kind of the case for some of these misses that I've had recently. I guess asking you about this would be like kind of what would be some of the mindset approaches with that
for people missing.
Yeah.
Oh well, like I told you the other day where you had missed the squat, but I'm like, dude, it was 650, 660 at the bottom. I'm like, your best squat in competition 620.
625, yeah.
Right. So I'm like, we're still making pretty good progress, and we're not even peaking for a meet right now, you know. Or it's like you still had 700 something pounds on your back, you know. Like there's steps that's going on that's are good signs of that, you know, you're heading in the right direction. And then sometimes even if the numbers aren't going upwards, you know, there's a lot of variables too that people don't think of. It's like, okay, well, I'm training. How much fatigue have I accumulated right now? And you're only expressing the strength level that matches your fatigue level. And, you know, people are like, well, I don't feel tired. I'm like, that's not how it works.
Yeah.
I'm like, you can get a great night's sleep. It doesn't mean your CNS doesn't still have some type of fatigue from what you've been doing the last couple of weeks of your training. Right. So there's always, you know, other things to look at. And I think Jamie has been big on that. It's like, dude, you know, because Joe, who benched 1,000 at the meet, or tried to bench 1,000 there at Hellbent, where he bombed out, but like he had 1,000 in his hands 3 times, and I'm like, yeah, I mean that's still a pretty good day.
When you think about it that way, you're like, okay, well, yeah. So you know, it's there someday, you know.
Yeah, and I think a big part of it that is too is like you might not feel tired, but you're completely bombed out, and vice versa. Like you could be feeling like absolute shit that day, and then all of a sudden you pull out a 30-40 pound PR and you're like, that doesn't even make sense to me, but it's just not how the body works.
It's the way powerlifting goes sometimes.
I think, but especially the two of us, now that we've seen each other at enough meets together competing, we're both relatively calm on meet day. And I think some people push a little too far to one direction or the other, and they get a little too bent out of shape about missing lifts or too amped up to hit something. And I would have to say, especially helping handle him at Hellbent, I was like, it's just so calm. And I think that's like how you can get amped up all you want, but I think for people like us, that is really helpful, just to be like,
it's like a hitter's
go
mentality
into
in
it, be
baseball.
neutral. Yeah. Just
You
go
know,
into it
you
neutral.
strike out 3 times, but the 4th at bat, the game's on the line. You know, you got to try to pull it together. You know, and you can't let what happened in the past dictate what's going to go in the future. Like each lift is individual, and especially in equipped lifting, because like you can manipulate variables so much. Like even if your strength's not necessarily there that day, you can jack the shirt down a little extra, and all of a sudden you hit a lift you shouldn't have hit that day.
Exactly.
And it can be weird like that, you know. But you just gotta take what you can for the day and take everything individual, you know.
Yeah, and actually, this kind of brings up so this Sunday when I was squatting, so something for me I've done in the past, and I still do it, is I'll get like way too amped up for a lift, and John would be like, "Hey, just calm down. You know how to squat. If you rush it, you're gonna fuck it up. So don't rush it. Like take your time. You can still get like hyped up internally, but you don't need to like freak out." And so on my last warm up set or my first wrap set, it was, I think I had 505 on the bar, and I just rushed the shit out of the pick. Like I scooped it. I didn't get my hips in. And on the way up, the bar legitimately rolled 3 inches onto my back, and I ended up like good morning it. And then he's like, calm down. Don't be an idiot. Then we made that 40-pound jump, and it moved great. So I think that was a prime example of just calm down.
Yeah, I definitely have like a very like calm presence. I think when I first did my first 1,000 in July, I was coming up to the bar and getting under it, and I'm like, am I coming at this too passively right now? Like I swear my heart rate's about like resting at 60 right now, and I'm like, but you got to be able to execute, you know, is the thing. It's like you think of like these kickers, you know, because I used to kick in football too. And it's like, I can't go up there like a bat out of hell. Like I'm trying to kick this thing 80 yards, you know, I got to execute, you know, with precision and put this thing where it needs to go, you know? So I think there's a happy balance of it, I guess.
I mean, I hear you in my head, even if you're not around, especially for squats, do it right. And like, he'll tell me that all the time, do it right. Like, I know what I'm doing, so do it right. And I think especially something my clients usually pick at, they notice well, every time you go up to the bar, it looks the same. I'm like, I know.
That's the point.
I know. Yeah. Like, yeah, it should. So like if I break down the first, 5 to 10 seconds right before you see me clip it to put on Instagram, it should look exactly the same every time. And I think that's something that we probably have to reiterate to clients a little bit more. Everyone should look the same. It shouldn't be, it's
from the
just
bar,
the bar
to 1100.
Yep,
yeah,
exactly.
And it's the same approach.
And it kind of goes both ways with like not being overhyped, but not treating your warm-ups as just a warm-up. You should be treating it like a set that you're trying to move proficiently, effectively, and just as fast. So,
because you miss in the warm-ups or you miss groove something, like that's energy drained for the day.
Yeah.
You know, so then that takes off your big third attempt that you're going for at the end, you know, because you misgrooved your 500-pound warm-up. So now 700, you know, okay, he doesn't have the gas in the tank because he wasted it good morning 500 in the warm-ups.
Yeah. So I guess kind of more into the future plans for you guys as a coaching team and as just competing in general. What are some of your goals for the next year?
Great question. I know more specifically for the both of us would be just to do a meet together. So that would be kind of cool.
It's possibly in the works.
Yeah, so that would be a cool thing. But just keep progressing people to get under a bar, and whether it's beginner level or advanced level, or even taking people that are at an advanced level or were once at an advanced level and showing them, a new way to do things. Just having people get gains and have them be happy and confident under the bar too. I think that's the biggest one. Just have people get confident and
a lot of enjoyment out of the coaching thing.
Yeah.
said I think it like excites me more when I see like clients do well versus my own lifting. Cause like I'm in control of my own lifting.
Yeah.
You know, I feel decent
You're
about me getting
totally
under the bar and being able to do what I need to do. But like them, it's like, fuck, I hope they don't fuck this up.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's like, and especially if you have multiple lifters at the same meet, it's like your blood pressure spikes
Yeah.
9 times per lifter
All the
times how
time.
many lifters you got there. And it's
Especially
like,
in their
oh,
same flight, back to back.
Oh, man.
I know. I remember you telling me that at the MetFit meet in October. I was like, yeah, this is my first meet as an actual coach. I got 3 clients. And he was like, be prepared for 27 blood pressure spikes because you can.
Yeah.
And I was like, he's probably just fucking around. And then I get there, I'm like, oh, dude, I'm more nervous than being in an actual meet myself.
Yeah. Because you're the one making the calls. Yeah.
But it was a good
It's fun.
experience, yeah. And I mean, luckily enough, it was all raw and sleeves, so I didn't have to worry about wrapping someone or setting someone's shirt or anything. But now my clients are starting to ask me about getting into wraps. And one of my clients that's competing in January is my best friend up in Utica, New York. He's going to be using wraps. So I'm like, well, my forearms are going to be toast by the end of the day. So,
Yep.
But
There's a lot to learn with it. But as you get into it more, I mean, I am incredibly lucky to have the actual gym. So I can pick, you know, hey, are you free this weekend? Are you free this weekend? And luckily I have a couple of people that I kind of can count on that if I need an extra set of hands. At Winter's Wrath this December, the 2 of us, both coaching, both had somebody in each, you know, flights. And it's just like, I had a spare head of hands that could help him too. And that also, I mean, we're both really lucky to be around communities between Invictus and Fairhaven, more specifically, like we'll always be the extra set of hands and we'll always be really, really supportive of other people.
Community is really good, especially in the equipped side, at which she kind of noticed that when we first went to Hellbent to train in July with me and Rupo went down there and squatted with those guys. She saw how like this works where everybody's kind of spotting, loading off one mono, and she's like, holy shit, this is what we need to do at my gym.
So I've been forcing it. I'm like, let's go, everybody needs to learn how to spot.
Like,
everyone needs to
raw now is like most people just train by themselves in a commercial gym or whatever. They just train by themselves how to rack. They don't understand the teamwork and the camaraderie that comes with it. It's like I don't even think of, you know, Tuesdays and Thursdays when I drive over an hour to go to Fairhaven, like I don't even think about the lifting. Like I'm going up there to hang out with my friends for a couple hours, you know? It's like, it's just a good time. And you don't think twice about it, you know? Like I'm going to go there and while I'm there, I'm going to train because there's nothing else. You got to train. Everybody else is training. You got to train. But, you know, I'm just there to hang out with my friends. So,
that's kind of,
you know, it makes it such a more enjoyable experience.
Yeah, that's like with me going up to Worcester every Sunday. Like it's all hands on deck every time someone's going. We got the hype crew. We got the 7 people to spot fucking John and Charlie squatting goddamn house. So like it's awesome. Just everyone's doing their own thing, but when it's time to like go for a big lift or a PR, it just everyone swarms to the person going, and it's awesome. So
it's selfless at that point, and I definitely noticed that more so at Hellbent. And then I'm like, okay, I gotta get this in my gym. How do I figure this out? And it's literally just, hey, you're chatting, are you doing this? Like you're gonna spot her or you're gonna jump in on that, because especially the way that I coach, I could have anywhere from 2 people to 10 people in the room at the same time. And if 5 of those are powerlifters and I'm supposed to be spotting everyone, that's a lot on me. And I also want to make sure it's done right. Like you said, don't rush it, get through it, coach them through what they need. So for me to do my job, it's nice to have another set of hands here and there, set of eyes too, someone to call depth, because, you know, I can't spot, call depth, and video at the same time. You know, that's a lot. So
well, it's coaching your group up to be able to help each other. And it's like what John was going through when he opened the gym. You know, he had been somewhere for years training with a group of people that knew what was going on. Well, now he has to basically start from scratch and teach you and Chucky and all these other guys, like, okay, like this is how we spot, this is how we call depth, like all the things that go into it. It's all, you know, and then once you can, you know, get that going, it's like a you know, well-oiled machine. You know, then you can just add pieces in and people can pick up and learn, you know, because there's 15 people to learn from.
Yeah. And it's kind of like everyone knows how to spot, whether it's a side spot, a back spot, how to run the mono, how to wrap someone, how to roll the wraps, just all those little things. And once everyone learns those, it's just like you don't have to like pick and choose who's doing what, because they're the only ones that can rap in the room. It's just you do this, and then boom, it's just like you said, a well-oiled machine.
It's a pit crew of just people doing all the things.
Exactly.
Well, that's how powerlifting was for forever. It's just like the last 10, 15 years where Raw took off, and then it's all kind of like individual now. Everybody's got their friends on social media and whatever, but like people aren't going halfway across the country to wrap your knees in Raw powerlifting. You know what I mean? But you're going to Florida, it's like, okay, I got 3 people coming down here just to give me 3-man handoffs on the bench press. It's just a totally different world. And I don't think a lot of people understand that aspect of it.
Yeah, I guess kind of more talking about the current state of the sport of powerlifting between Raw and multiply, kind of maybe what are some of your opinions on it, or some things that you think that would really benefit from improving on?
Oh, I don't know.
Great question.
It's just, it is what it is, and it's just social media, and like I said, people are worried about followers and the federation's unfollowing them. I don't care if any federation follows me on Instagram. You know what I mean? Like, I just care about my numbers getting better.
Yeah.
At one point, nothing mattered but your totals going up. Now it's just everybody wants to be an ambassador, but it's like you're not an ambassador. You don't have an ambassador numbers. Like, your lifts aren't impressive. You don't need to worry about being an ambassador. Worry about doing the sport. Learn the sport for a while, pay your dues.
I think more specifically in the last about year and a half ish, I've noticed more so early 20-year-old ish to mid 20-year-old that, oh, well, this guy at my gym does powerlifting and he's my coach. I'm like, okay, great. Go for it. See you later. I let people off. I'm very much a no harm, no foul kind of person. If you want to go with another coach, it is what it is. But if you weren't following what I was telling you in the first place, now you're not going to follow it with someone else, the progress isn't going to be there.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people misunderstand the off-season work and constantly wanting to do meets or wanting to do meets with a certain fed because their buddies do it. I had a kid a couple months ago tell me, I want to compete in powerlifting. I want to do USPA. I said, okay. Okay. But you've never done a meet. You have no idea about anything.
Yeah.
You're just picking something out of a hat essentially and just saying, this is what I want to do because it's what I've seen on social media. And I think that makes it really hard for us to just be like, okay, well, how about you do, a more local meet, or you do this, or you get into at least 4 to 8 weeks of training to even see if you even want to do powerlifting. You might hate it, So I think we get stuck in a weird position with trying to get people just basically convince everyone to do RPS because there's no
I don't
fees,
care
extra
that
crap,
you don't want to go do USAPL nationals and finish 100th place, but don't shit on the most user-friendly feds.
Yeah.
You don't even got to buy a membership.
Yep.
Yeah.
You just sign up and go lift.
Yeah.
It's like, it couldn't
for the lifters fed. It's such a for the lifters fed.
That's what I have a problem. Like, don't come talking shit.
Yeah.
About what we do, because this is the way I like to lift weights.
Yeah.
I don't care what the federation is. I just go do what.
It's all the same on open powerlifting. So
Exactly. And I
what?
think that's
why does it matter?
Some of these new people in the sport probably don't even know what open powerlifting is, and they're worrying about what they look like at their USAPL meet or their collegiate competition. But at the end of the day, they're like in the bottom 10% on open powerlifting for their weight class because someone RPS has a top 10 total of them, and they're like, oh, but that's a beginner fed. And it's like, no, it's all beginner if you're a beginner or not. So
like all-time world record holders go do RPS meets, man.
Yeah.
So I don't know what to tell you. They want to go do a meet, they go do a meet. You know exactly what you're getting when you go to an RPS meet. They're all pretty well run.
And local level or national level, it doesn't matter. Powerlifting's powerlifting. Especially if, I know we have friends that have said this. We're going to do meets based on the meet director, where it's at, the type of people that we know are going to be there. We don't have to fly across the country just to do a meet because it's so-and-so's meet. It's like, no, you do it because you want to support the people that are running it too.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, if you're if you're happy with the route you're taking and you're serious about it and trying to get better, like I can't fault you at all. Like, you know what I mean? You go do what you want to do. Like I said, I don't shit on raw lifters for lifting raw.
Yeah.
You know? Like, wow, you lifting sleeves, loser? You know, I do that naked knee without a belt, even raw. But you know, I'm not talking shit to them. But it's like, I don't know. As long as the sport's growing, I guess, and people are committed to, like, if you're happy with the hobby you're doing and you're passionate about your hobby, whether it's playing a goddamn band instrument or sports or doing art, like whatever you do, like commit to it and try to get better at it. Like that's like a good mindset to have in life. So, you know, as long as people are kind of headed down that track, I guess it's fine.
Yeah, and for me, like my perspective is I like to call myself like a middle of the pack guy right now, as both an athlete and a coach. And like sometimes I'll see like these 22, 23-year-old coaches and I'll be like, what the fuck are they doing? And I'm like, is this me? But I'm like, at the end of the day, I'm like, I know I'm better than that. Try in like a humble way, but like I have the influences of people who are top level lifters. And like for myself, like I don't have a total to like turn heads, but I'm trying to get to that point. And it's kind of like some of these people at the middle of the pack are like Chris said before, like the weakest ones are the loudest ones, and like they're the ones talking shit and saying, oh, sumo's cheating or equipped is cheating, and it's just not healthy for the sport.
No, and it's like, dude, like equipped powerlifting and raw powerlifting, like I approach them the same programming wise pretty much. One, you're, you know, equipped, we can variable different levels of gear, you can be in the shirt, out of the shirt, like, you know, so it's a little different, you know, for raw that way. But I mean, it like getting strong is getting strong.
Yeah.
Like, and it all it's all the same exact thing. And it's all relevant in its own capacities.
I agree.
Yeah.
Yeah, and like I said, with the growth of the sport, I think it's important to be able to understand that raw and multiply are different, but at the end of the day, it's the same sport, and people need to stop kind of like the beef between raw versus multiply is something that I see every single day. And then someone who competes raw but is around multiply guys all the time, it just pisses me off, because it's like, you guys aren't growing the sport, you're not helping. Like it's going to be different. Like for example, the whole squat depth thing, like it is what it is, kind of in my perspective. Like it's going to be different. I don't think there's going to be any big change. It's been that way for years, and I feel like it's just
been that way for decades. It's not changing.
Yeah, it's not changing. And if people just accept that, because, and I think for me, like I said, the two things that I think are huge to kind of, I guess, mitigate the drama between the two is any meet that has a cash prize, it should be separate raw and multiply. And what was I forget what the other thing I said was, but that was a huge thing for me.
I agree with that.
I'd say. Yeah, and then in terms of like being like you're saying, like a middle of the road lifter and coach, like, you know, and that's fine. Like, you know, not everybody's gonna break records, and like you can, like, you don't just hire the guy that has the world record. Like, he might be a big outlier in the data, you know, like you think of somebody like a Jimmy Kolb, or, you know, I'm not saying that Jimmy doesn't have an incredible knowledge of being in the sport for so long, but like Jimmy's a big outlier. You know, what Jimmy's doing is probably not going to work for me. I got about 6 feet longer bench stroke than Jimmy. So not that he's not knowledgeable, but it's like, okay, that stuff might not work for me. But it's like, is this coach been making progress for a long period of time? Like, I've been doing this for 7 years, and like, you know, I've consistently got better for 7 years. That's a decent track record to have. Said, and people don't even know how well you're going to do in the sport, because most of us, like, there's the Charlies, like I coach, like, okay, he's done a couple meets, and like now we're knocking on the door 2,000 pound total, you know, at 20 years old.
Yeah.
Like, absolute freak. You know, he goes and takes a walk down the street and back, and all of a sudden squats more. Like, his adaptability is insane. You know, and then there's people, you just got to work. You got to work for it. You know, if they can add 20 pounds to your squat for per year for 5 years, that's 100 pounds, you know, now you're a 700 pound squatter, you know, but, you know, you got to you know, take a long approach to things sometimes, and it's not just be a flash in the pan and then you're gone.
Yeah.
You know, think a lot of good lifters, like a lot of these good lifters have done this for a long time, and people don't realize that.
Yeah. And it's also important for people that have worked their ass off to like look back to, like, for example, like my first full power meet was February of 2021, and my total was 1,400. Like, I'm closing on 1,700, and that's 3 years, that 300 pounds. Like, that's still That's crazy progress. But for someone like me who's so like lofty in these goals and like so determined to just keep pushing forward and jumping these steps, like
Yeah,
sometimes it's important to just like look back and realize like how far you've come in just a few years.
absolutely. Yeah.
Definitely.
And I think of like Jamie. Like Jamie has been powerlifting basically as long as I've been alive. He's been powerlifting since like the mid '90s, like unsanctioned high school bench onlys and stuff like that. And it's like, so now we're talking 30 years in the sport, and this guy's still finding a way to chip some PRs. I mean,
His
like
last
that's
meet was great. I
yeah,
mean, it was like it was a 5 pound PR on
yeah.
squat that he'd
I
been
mean, this
chasing
is
for.
this is a guy that's pushing almost
It's
50 years old, lifetime natural, and like still finding ways to PR. Like,
it's
okay,
so cool to
and like
watch.
that's a good person. Where it's like, okay, if I'm coaching, it's like, okay, well, I gotta, I don't know how I want to approach this. I can ask him. Part of like being a good coach is like, even if you're a football coach, you may know nothing about freaking quarterbacks, but you hire a quarterback coach or you go ask somebody to coach your quarterbacks. So it's not just like, okay, I got to run the whole ship and everything. It's like, I don't have like these like biomechanics degrees and like stuff on human movement and stuff like that. So like sometimes I have to go ask people like, hey, this guy's shoulders bugging him. Like, do you think you can talk with him and see what's going on? Like, so it's like resourcing out, to
Oh
stuff
yeah,
you don't have the answer for, not faking that you know all the answers for everything.
I'm huge on that, especially like owning a gym.
Yeah.
I can't have every answer.
Hmm.
So, I got a guy or a girl, and it's, you need massage, you need needling, like what do you need? And even I've found over the years reaching out to kind of like other coaches or just getting, I have another guy that works with me at the gym. He's got a kinesiology degree. That's like a different level that my brain processes. So I'll say, hey, pick his brain for something. I'm very lucky to have clients that are physical therapists and massage therapists and orthopedic, like the whole nine. And it's just constantly progressing. That's all you got to do. Keep your brain moving, ask people the right questions, know who to ask or where to go, and be willing to admit if you can't find an answer for something.
Yeah, I think that's huge. I mean, I have my master's in biomechanical engineering, and I still don't have all the answers. Like, I mean, for example, like at Kirby, I reached out to like a week or two ago about my client's block for prep. I was like, can you
Yep.
look at this? I had John look at it too. Like, you guys know what you guys are talking about, and you guys have been in the sport for a while. Like, I think I have a good idea, but I always like to get kind of like reassurance, I guess, from someone who's been programming for years, because I've
Yeah.
been programming for a couple years, but I mean, obviously there's plenty to improve upon.
Nothing beats experience in the sport.
Yep.
Yeah.
Get a
Hands down.
master's degree
Hands
in
down.
competing in the sport. Nothing beats time under the bar.
Yeah.
Like, time under the bar will teach you the ways. Books and stuff will give you an idea, but everybody figures it out underneath the bar. And that's why sometimes I have ideas. I go to Jamie and be like, hey, I'm thinking about doing this and this, and he's like, man, I mean, we could try it. I didn't have much success in it, but like, you know, it's good to have conversations with people, I guess.
Yeah.
People that also coach, and be like, I message people like Chris and uh these other people like Skiba. I message these guys from time to time, be like, hey, what do you think about this and that? And it's just good to bounce ideas off one another just to see where they're at, because they've been in the sport even longer than me. So it's always trying to learn and get a better system in place, I guess.
100%. I think to kind of wrap things up here, I'll ask my weekly question of you guys can each answer on your own. If you could give a powerlifter or someone going into their first meet a word of advice, what would it be?
I think mine would be just enjoy the process, enjoy the sport, enjoy going to meets, go there and meet people. And like, I've met so many amazing, like some of my best friends that I talk to every day are people I met in powerlifting over the last 7 years. So go there and enjoy the experience and enjoy what's going on. Like, you're going to have good meets and you're going to have bad meets, but I never leave a meet disappointed that I got to hang out with my friends for like 8 hours.
Yeah.
So,
sometimes longer depending on the meet. I agree with that. And I honestly, it's just, especially my new lifters that have never done a meet and they're putting all their eggs in one basket of doing like an actual sanctioned meet. Just don't have the expectation of going one way or the other. And I think especially I'd say in the last like 6 months, I've had enough brand new lifters that might never do another meet, but they like powerlifting. So not having that expectation that like
Don't
this is your
compare
life.
yourself to others.
Yeah. Especially don't compare yourself to others.
Yeah.
Just worry about yourself.
Because for all you know, the person next to you, this is their 12th meet. You know, like you don't know that. So yeah. And make friends. I think that's the coolest part of the powerlifting community is I don't think I've ever had a lifter come back from a meet and say like, oh, that was terrible. They're like, hey, I followed these 12 people on Instagram today because I met them at the meet, and complete strangers, and they could be any age, size, gender, like everything, and they're still going to support you. And I think that's the coolest thing, and that's what they take away from it.
That's awesome. Well, I want to thank you guys both for coming on. It was a blast. Kirby, I will be hearing from you more, sending you more bullshit throughout the week.
Yep, looking forward to it.
Yep. All right, thank you guys very much.
All right, buddy, have a good one.
Cam.
See ya.